Total government control of electricity in the name of smart grid technology is coming. Number 3, in some areas of the country, the power grid is dangerously overloaded. And now, new socialist legislation is only compounding the problem. Number 4, dangerous weather is always a threat to local grids. Every year, thousands of families lose their power from weather-related outages. Number 5, a solar power generator provides powerful backup insurance and peace of mind. Folks, I really believe in the solar power generators offered by Solutions from Science, one of my oldest sponsors. You can get more information at www.mysolarbackup.com. That's mysolarbackup.com. Remember, the government doesn't own the sun, so go to mysolarbackup.com or call 1-877-327-0365. We are back live, ladies and gentlemen. Gerald Celente, for the next 30 minutes, is our guest, founder of the Trends Research Institute. Really needs no introduction here. And, of course, many years ago, he predicted the commodity prices, the oil, the food going up, triggering food riots. He, of course, predicted the Tea Party rising several years before it did. And he is a frequent contributor to our radio broadcast. And I wanted to get him on about Egypt, about the economy, this new giant budget, all these huge tax increases, like 69% on state income tax in Illinois, the austerity where they raise the taxes but cut the benefits, the governor of Wisconsin coming out on NPR on Monday and saying, oh, if state employees don't like their pay being slashed and us taking more of their money for the pension fund, we'll just call the National Guard out on them. And some say, yeah, cut their pay. That'll pay off the deficit. It's the derivatives. That's 1.5 quadrillion. You could cut everything and it wouldn't pay for even a few percentage points of it. We don't owe this money. And so Gerald has broken all this down, but I want him to go over it and give us the big picture geopolitically of what's happening and continuing to tweak his trends forecast, what he sees coming up in the next few months here in the United States. Gerald, great having you with us.
Hey, thanks, Alex.
You've got the floor. What do you want to cover first?
Well, let's look at Egypt first. If you go back to our Trends Journal, we've been predicting this. About 2 years ago, we came out with Workers of the World Unite 2.0. This has nothing to do with democracy, theocracy. It has to do with the bottom line. And the bottom line is this. When the money stops flowing down to Main Street, the blood begins to flow on the streets. And the money is not flowing down. We're looking at, for example, in Egypt, the per capita wage, the average wage of an Egyptian is $10 a day. That's according to the Egyptian statistics. Now, when you see food prices going up, you got a lot of angry people because the cream at the top of the pyramid, if you will, they're taking all the dough. So what we wrote about also in the Trends Journal that you have, the winter edition that went out just weeks before, days actually, before the Tunisian uprisings, we sent out a synopsis. One of them was Youth of the World Unite. And I've been talking about this on your show as well. Here these kids, figure it out. You have a 50% unemployment rate in Spain. Probably in Italy it's around 35. The kids angry. They have college degrees in worthlessness. There's no job future. They have this white shoe boy language. I love it. You brought it up. Austerity measures. Here's some austerity measures. We're going to cut the minimum wage, as they did in Ireland, 12%. They're not making anything anyway. Let's cut it lower. We're going to increase the costs of everything, all the services, all the licensing fees. We'll be after you for every little thing you do wrong, and you'll pay more for it. And we're going to cut services. Oh, and by the way, those pensions, we're going to cut those along with their benefits. And your retirement age, I got a good one for you. We're going to increase the retirement age till after you die. How's that? Oh, one other thing. We're going to raise taxes across the board. And we have to do this because the white shoe boys, I love the language, they don't want to take a haircut on the bad bets that they made, so you have to pay them off. What's going on, in, as we said, Off With Their Heads 2.0, the Autumn Trends Journal, what's going on in Tunisia, what's going on in Egypt, it's not Arab exclusive. You know, there's a beginning of, it's going to go to Europe, as we said. You know, Alex, remember when you were a kid, they taught you in school, World War I began when they assassinated the Archduke Ferdinand in Sarajevo. And you had the multiple choice junk, you know, you had to figure it out, the dates. No, it didn't. There were brush fires. The aristocracy started losing their money and they started trying to steal it from everybody else. And they're doing the same thing now. We are on the doorstep of the first great war, the Spring Trends Journal, of the 20th century. The brush fires are starting in Tunisia. They're starting in Egypt. They're starting in Bahrain, in Iran, in Libya, Algeria, Morocco, Greece, Spain, Portugal, Italy, the UK. You're going to see uprisings around the world as the little people start getting squeezed more and more.
Well, Gerald, now the UK is reporting 4% increase in inflation a month, and that's even the government's own cook numbers. We're getting more reports every day of TSA agents planting drugs on people, sexually harassing them. One guy stole $160,000 reportedly from check bags. I mean, we're just seeing more and more corruption come out, and now every major Islamic nation in the Middle East is in turmoil. That is spreading. In fact, here are some of the headlines. Egypt's protest flare despite military warning. Anti-government protests spread to Libya. Thousands of police confront protesters in Yemen. Protests spreading all over Saudi Arabia. Bahrain protesters urge more pressure. 100 Egyptians reach Italy amid Arab exodus. Carter says Muslim Brotherhood, nothing to be afraid of. So the social engineers knew that these upheavals were about to happen because of food prices. Their own reports admitted that. So they went in and triggered the overthrow of Mubarak, thinking they're going to control it, but clearly they're not going to be able to control it. And you talked about war in the Middle East being the answer to this depression. Clearly the social engineers are trying to nudge this crisis in a direction they can control, and then they will pose as the arbiters or the referees of the unfolding crisis.
I don't know if it's being engineered. I think the whole thing's out of control the way I see it.
No, they know it's out of control, so they went ahead and triggered it.
Oh, yeah, they're going to engineer it. I mean, let's go back. Let's play back the Egyptian uprising. As it began, we heard from Joe Biden, right? He said that Mubarak wasn't a dictator and he should stay in office. I looked about how long was Mubarak in for 30 years. You know how long Biden's been sucking off the public tit? 36 years. Of course he wasn't a dictator, not to Biden. He's been living his whole life off us. And $40 billion of our dollars going over there. And then you heard Hillary Clinton say, it has to be an orderly transition. They have to get their roles together, the voting rolls. So now you're hearing champions for democracy. I've never seen, that's the engineering, is this hypocrisy. The hypocrisy coming out of Washington. They supported this guy for 30 years. And here's the other thing that everybody should really be furious at. We were mentioning about Obama's new budget. Was it about $50 billion going into foreign aid? Let me tell you what foreign aid is. Foreign aid is your money that you work for every day. They take it out of your pocket, and then they send it to their buddies overseas that they want to do deals with. That's all it is. Grow up about this. So let's stop this foreign aid baloney, because Egypt got $40 billion of ours. What is Israel getting? $3 billion plus a year. I don't want my money going anywhere. How about this? How about sending it to Detroit? There's a war zone.
Well, meanwhile, we have U.S. troops being shot at, U.S. police being killed, U.S. diplomats, U.S. ICE agents, and the media is not worried about that. The government's not worried about that. Mexican troops now coming across the U.S. border and searching citizens at checkpoints. But we have telescreens going in Walmart telling us spy on our neighbors. They're now going to have Homeland Security announcements during NBA basketball games, trying to make Janet Napolitano some type of rock star. We have just all of this going on. TSA robbing people. It really is scary how corrupt this society's going. Summing it up, where do you see America in a month, 6 months, a year, 2 years? I mean, you've talked about revolution, tax rebellions. You talked about it years before it came. Now it's starting. Where do you see it going?
Well, on the one end, it's what you're talking about. They're going to clamp down on us more and more. Again, the hypocrisy. Hillary Clinton talking about the freedom of the internet while they're clamping down on this end. And in the Trends Journal, there's that wonderful piece in the winter edition by Dr. Paul Craig Roberts, Loss of Liberty. That's where it's going. So it's hard to say if there's going to be revolts in this country because we see the hypocrisy. As they were talking about, let the people in Egypt revolt, don't come down on the journalists. What do they do in this country? Look what happened at the G20 meetings in Pittsburgh a few years ago. They closed down the whole city. You couldn't protest. All those goon squads. Maybe they should bring in the Egyptian.
And it turned out in
squad.
Canada, the police were lying when they said no protest allowed, that a special law had been passed. Turned out they were just lying. Here's USA Today. Kill switch internet bill alarms privacy experts. The government's openly saying they want to be able to shut the internet off, and they're getting ready to launch a false flag against the web. There's no doubt about that.
No doubt about it. And they're going to launch a bigger false flag. It's going to be terrorism or war. Mark my words. Here, for anybody that has a attention deficit disorder or suffering from Alzheimer's disease or living in, a little kid that can't put it together, remember the main. Saddam Hussein has weapons of mass destruction and ties to Al-Qaeda. Oh, here's one for you. The Gulf of Tonkin, remember that beautiful lie? They'll lie about anything. They'll take you to war. And this is what we wrote about, Alex, back in 2008 when the whole bailout scams began. We said when the bailout bubbles burst, the next stop is war. We're heading toward the first great war of the 21st century. You mentioned about the czarette, Janet Napolitano. That bureaucratic, she knows a lot about security, she's really on time. And, look what they're doing. Look at Obama's budget. They're increasing Homeland Security. They're not cutting defense.
That's right. They announced tens of billions of dollars for more naked body scanners to roll out on the streets, the courthouses, everywhere.
Everywhere in the cities, in the states. More money to control you and me. That's all this is about. As they lose control, they take more control. Let's look more at the budget. Defense. They're cutting defense. I love it. They go $78 billion. Then you read it. $78 billion over 5 years. So what are we talking about? $15 billion? Now let's add in some inflation into that.